Hey, what's up guys? I'm DJ Alex Brown and welcome to today's video. In today's video, we are reviewing this cool product today. This is the ADJ WMX1. To give a little bit of background, if you are in the US, this goes by ADJ WMX1. However, if you are in the UK, this is going to be referred to as the Wolfmix W1. It's the same thing. It's just got a different logo on it, and we can get deeper into that towards the end of the video, but I don't want to bore you guys with just talking about who owns the rights to this and all that stuff. Getting right into reviewing this product. First of all, before I bought this, I bought it on Amazon, by the way, because I've liked having the ability to return things, and I'll leave an Amazon link in the description to a pretty good listing for this. But I watched a video on this from Jason Johnny before I bought this lighting controller. And he mentioned how he had used this, tried it out, thought he wasn't going to stick with it, and then used it again and said it was awesome. And I wanted to elaborate on that because I had a very similar experience. The first time that I tried to use this, I did not try and set it up before an event. I didn't do any pre-programming. I was like, hey, it's an out-of-the-box thing. I plugged it in, made sure it worked. Okay, great. Showed up to an event with it. I had all my fixtures plugged in already. I plugged it in, tried to make a show with it. It wasn't happening. I didn't have enough time to mess around with it, so I unplugged it. I used my ADJ WMX1. I called ADJ that week and ironed out the problems that I had with this. They helped me work through them. And the next wedding that I used it on was the CO2 wedding. If you haven't seen the gig log, check it out over here. That wedding was super fun in so many ways, but I used this controller for that entire wedding, and I was shocked by not only what this could do, but also all of the compliments I got on my light show after using this. So the first thing was the photographer, who was from out of state, was like, this is one of the best light shows I've ever seen at a wedding. Now I was using fog with the light show, but we don't need to get too deep into that. The main thing I'm trying to get across here is this is a really, really, really powerful controller. Like, super powerful. If you are a mobile DJ with moving lights, and you don't want to deal with having to bring like a Grand MA controller or something to produce a really good quality, like concert grade light show, you need one of these. If you're just messing around with basic RGB colors, this is maybe a little overkill. But if you're dealing with moving lights and you're like scratching your head, like moving lights are such a pain in the ass to program, and I can't deal with trying to dial them anymore. My light shows aren't looking good. They're boring to me. Like, people like them, but they're boring to me. You need this, period. This is what you need. That's all I'm gonna say. And that's where I'm gonna stop and actually kind of get into reviewing this product, because that's all you need to know unless you really wanna know all the fine details. So now, starting to get into the fine details here, we'll talk tech specs for a minute. This does have some onboard storage. It's plenty enough to handle your fixtures and your shows. I think I have like half of it, maybe less used, and it's just the fixture profiles. And you can add and subtract those too. There are these knobs up here, and then I'm gonna call them beat pads because I'm a DJ, but lighting guys would probably yell at me for that. And then you have your effects buttons on the sides, and all basically different functions. Presets, live edits, and a big touch screen up here. This is super important. And then of course, up here you have your USB, you have your line in, and you have your inputs or your outputs for DMX. There are 2 3-pin and 2 5-pin, and you can have 4 DMX universes running out of this controller, which is huge. That is like massive for how small this thing is. Granted, technology has come a long way. You can even link 2 of these together. You can link in external DMX faders. Elation makes a really simple DMX fader that if this is not a tactile enough surface for you and you want to have some physical fader controls, you can link those in. This can be connected into your computer, and you can use WTOOLS to kind of program this a little bit from the computer and use easyview, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you can also do some MIDI syncing with your DJ controller with this. There's really a lot of cool features. I've only scraped the surface and I absolutely love this thing. Now, if you've watched any of the other review videos on my channel, you know I very frequently talk about price and value. This, I believe I paid around $700 for. Obviously, what you pay for it is going to depend on where you get it from. You can probably get a better deal from KPO DJ versus on Amazon, and who you get it from, shipping, tax, all that stuff's going to change. But let's say it's somewhere between $600. Now, in my eyes, originally, I was like, that seems pretty expensive. I mean, yes, it's a standalone controller. You don't need to have it plugged into a computer or have a computer screen at all. It's basically like running off an iPad, but like 10 times better. But I was like, I paid like $300 for my ADJ WMX. Actually, I got it used, so I paid less than that, but that's a different story. I was like, why would I use this thing? I was like, it looks cool, let me try it out. And obviously I tried it out and I liked it, because that's why we're talking about it in this video. But this is worth every penny of that $700. Now, I personally don't have a need for another one or an expansion of faders. However, I think that also really depends on your use of this controller. For example, this is very, very strongly suited to the mobile DJ, mobile lighting industry for, you know, music, concerts, stuff like that. If you're using this to try and do a stage show, it's probably not the best piece of equipment for that. I might recommend the ADJ WMX. You can still use this, certainly. It's just not really what it was designed for. If you expand it with a couple of elation faders next to it, you can probably get away with that a little bit easier. That's kind of who this is for. Now, the biggest thing that I really like about this, or the biggest two things that I really like about this, are the fact that it's so stupidly easy to use. I'm at the point in my business where I'm trying to get other people to do the work for me. I want to be able to easily control my lights, but I also want somebody else to easily be able to control my lights with minimal training. This hits that on the head. Because there are shows built in and it's so intuitive, I basically have 3 windows or panes of stuff on this beat pad, and I can teach someone how to make a whole light show. Just make it look good, mess with these a little bit, and that's this very watered down version. But I have a wedding coming up this weekend that I'm gonna throw this at the guy who has never touched one of my lighting controllers ever in his life. He's a DJ, he's helped me set lights up, he's never touched one of my lighting controllers, because I'm gonna see how he does, and by the time this video is uploaded, I'll be able to cut in something talking about how he did with this. For the last 2 weddings I did with this, I put a professional production guy on this controller. Dom, you saw him in the CO2 wedding video. He's a production company owner, so he's very good with lights. He was able to pick this up in like 5 minutes, which obviously that's because he knows his way around controllers, but he's never touched anything like this before. And he was designing, I have videos here that I can show you and that I've been cutting over the video. The light shows we were putting on were the best light shows of my life. And these light shows had complexities. They had CO2, they had spotting on the dance floor. In one case, the last wedding I did that I really wanted to do a gig log for, but I just didn't have the time. I had a disco ball that I needed to point the lights at. I needed really specific areas of the tent to be lit and everything else to be dark. And I can do everything. All of that on here. I had to mess around with some live edits. I probably could have gotten into some presets too, but it took me like maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to set all the lights for that disco ball. Trying to do that in my DMX would have taken me probably an hour. And that time at the event is so, so valuable and so important that this controller pays for itself just based off of that, especially if you're trying to run a business and not just do things yourself. Now, granted, one of the things that I'm really a huge fan about on this is the tactile ability, that you actually have something to touch and click and turn. Obviously, it separates it from your computer screen, but also it gives me something where I can have this next to my DJ controller. I can reach over and go, I want the moving heads to go down, and click right here. I can push them up. I can go switch the colors. If I need to strobe, I can just hit the strobe button and strobe quick and then adjust the amount of the strobe. There are so many amazing features of this controller. It is really just, I don't have enough good things to say about it. It is seriously the best piece of DJ lighting equipment I have ever used. I've told other business owners that have multi-op companies about this, and they seem really interested in it. Now, one of the main competitors on the market to this is the Chauvet ILS, a Command Wing, I think it's called, something along those lines. And I did get a chance to mess around with that a little bit at the DJ Expo. To me, it's just not nearly as intuitive as using this. This is very out of the box. Once you have your lights dialed in, you know, this turns it into a performance, whereas the ILS seems a little more technically focused and maybe a little more adaptable to all types of events, but I think it actually detracts from the usefulness. Also, you don't have that big touchscreen that you do with this WMX. Now, I mentioned turning the light show into a performance. I don't want to hark on this too much, but really it was super important to turn the light show into a performance. And as I mentioned, this has been putting out the best light shows I have ever seen in my business. People absolutely dropping their jaws. Actually being able to use all of the features of my lights that I have now is just so crazy important, and it actually makes the show so much better because I can actually tap into the full capability of the lights. Now, I'm not going to go through and do a full tutorial of how to use this thing. That would be for a separate video, but I am going to talk about some of the features that I've used and also some of the downsides. Unfortunately, there are some downsides to this controller and some nuances that you should be aware of before you buy it. So first off, the big thing that I'm a little upset about is for such an expensive piece of equipment, the fact that to expand it into another universe or to use the easyview on the computer, you need to pay extra. You have to pay $100 to use easyview, which is probably well worth it. That's one of the main reasons I didn't program things at home, is because I didn't feel like paying the $100 for the easyview if I wasn't going to stick with this controller. Now I would probably pay for it. I just feel like even just a trial of easyview would be nice to make it a little easier to get started with this. So ADJ, if you're watching, that might be a good idea, or Wolfmix. Another issue with this is, unfortunately, there is no way to natively control with any of the presets, zoom and things like that on lights that have zoom. I have two ADJ VisiHexWash 7s that I need to manually control the zoom. Now, I have done this through live edits. I have a bank of 4 that goes either across this one or this one, preset into here, saved for every show, that, you know, one is fully zoomed in and one is fully zoomed out, and then the other 2s are kind of in between. And those work fine for what I'm doing most of the time, but it's just a little nuanced thing. The other thing is, the reason that I had so much trouble getting started with this is because this controller is very, very reliant on defaults and fixture profiles. And what I mean by that is, if you were to use, like personally, I come from using ADJ My DMX before using this controller. And that is also very fixture profile based. So basically those same profiles go on here, and then that tells this controller how to control each light and how to use all the presets that you have kind of built in to control those lights. The usefulness of those profiles can be degraded because sometimes the way they are set up, they have a channel that is up, and you need to mess around with this a little bit, put your lights on it, and actually figure out how they're going to react. It's very important to actually take the time when you get this set up with the fixtures to actually make sure that they don't have a random red channel being overridden, or that you know, a strobe is just randomly on or something like that. So I had to go through that. That was a little painstaking. I did make it through. I have mostly everything dialed in correctly, but once in a while I'll get like a red undertone, and usually it's not the end of the world. Usually I can manually take it out. If I'm using like a live edit or something, I can just take it out, and you can't have that live edit also override before you add anything else on top. So there's a lot of workarounds to still make it work. Even if you're at an event, you can still fix these things. You just put a live edit in, and it's really not that hard to do. With that being said, I've also had some issues with gobos and just certain fixture profiles. I have inno pocket spots still, and I've only really been able to use the white full open on those, unless they're strobing or something, just because something is up with the profile. And honestly, my light shows still look great, so I haven't really had time to just go through and figure that out. I probably could if I took the time to go through, but it's really not worth my time at this point. The light shows look so good as they are anyway that it just doesn't really matter that much. You can, of course, customize the fixture profiles and things, which is one of the ways that you can fix those problems. But again, once you do it for the first time, you're probably fine. Another huge, huge feature of this is the fact that you can very quickly and easily add an event after all your lights are set up, dial in the parameters of where you want your lights to stay on the dance floor. You can even invert and flip your fixtures through here so that you never actually have to set the fixture up itself besides the addressing. And that makes it really easy to make the lights all stay on the dance floor. This is the easiest technology I've ever used to do that, and it is almost mindless. I haven't showed anybody else how to do it just for the lack of time to actually do that, but for me to do it, it was very intuitive. The first time I set this up, I could very easily dial that in with these knobs here, and for the disco ball wedding, I had to adjust them. So I had them set up the way that I like them, and I just went and dialed in each fixture of the 4 moving heads exactly to where I needed them to stay. And then the wedding that I have this weekend, I'll have to revert them back. So in most cases, once you set them up, if you have a standard way that you set your lights up, you'll probably be fine. Maybe just need some minor adjustments at each event. But even if you have to make a major adjustment, it is very, very fast to set the limits on this. And that is hugely important with the amount of custom lighting stuff that I've had to do lately. The fixture inversions and things like that are also invaluable to the lighting setups I've been doing recently, and it also helps to fix some issues. If you accidentally put a moving head on the wrong side of the setup, you don't have to deal with trying to readdress your fixtures and stuff like that. You can pretty easily swap things around on here, do pan inversions, tilt inversions. You can flip the entire fixture. It's really, really versatile how this thing works. So besides that and some of the gig footage, I really don't have much else to say about this. It's just a great piece of equipment. If you are starting to deal with bigger light shows and doing bigger events, or you're just looking for a piece of equipment that will help make your light shows better, you should definitely look into this piece of gear. Again, I will put a link to the Amazon page that I purchased this one on. And I will also say that if you purchase this on Amazon, the link that I leave in the description will be an affiliates link, so it will also help to support the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some value out of this. If you have any questions or if you've used one of these controllers before, definitely let me know in the comments section. Otherwise, that's going to wrap this up. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a comment, leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell. That is going to wrap it up for now, but I will have much more content coming soon. Until then, peace.